The history of manifestation. So, what we're talking about this week is history and how it informs our worldview, our view of who we are and how we fit in the world. And we're talking about how the history that we have all been told of who human beings are is comes from a place of division, comes from what we would have to call the conquerors. And when you listen to native wisdom, they're always talking about the native people and then the conquering people who came in. So we're talking here to the conquering people, you and me, more than likely. I'm sure, some truly indigenous people might watch this video, but really it is more uh, people who come from these conquering cultures who are searching for spirituality, who are searching for non-duality and enlightenment traditions, because we know something's wrong and we're trying to get back to a different state. But the history, our beliefs of who we are is so deep that it informs how we search, and it also informs how the traditions, the Enlightenment traditions, tell us to search. All the methods and everything come from. So we're kind of like back to, Einstein. You can't fix something using the same uh, ideas that created the problem in the first place. You need something totally brand new. So we're talking how to jump way out of that conquering mentality. So into my email, this just a few minutes ago, I got something from Eckhart Tolle, how on manifesting, and I got something from Osho International on how to, let's see, what is it says, the alchemy of the self. And both of these are such perfect examples of how, if you try to use ideas of deep division to cure division, you create more division. So the idea of manifesting. Eckhart Tolle is really big about this because he managed to manifest a whole bunch of stuff just by becoming enlightened, right? But that is a perfect example. Now, stop, full stop. So many people will argue, oh, well, he's not truly enlightened. Or, oh, if a true person was truly enlightened, they would this or that or this or that. No, that's so untrue because he is obviously completely awake. He woke up instantly on one day and has never gone back to sleep. But the only tools that he has to use to speak to us is the same language and the same history that we share together. So, unless a person like Eckhart Tolle is capable of really jumping out of that paradigm, the same things are going to be talked about over and over and over. Manifesting. I mean, it's huge, right? Everybody wants to manifest this and manifest that. The easiest way to become rich, apparently, is by teaching people how to be rich. Talk about a vicious circle. If I teach you how to be rich, I'll make really a lot of money. And then I'll say, oh, I'm rich. And so now I can teach you how to be rich. And or someone who happens to accidentally get rich, which is very much the story of Eckhart Tolle, can then teach all of the rest of us how to get rich. But you can't blame him for being stuck in that paradigm. I mean, that's everywhere. And the spiritual world is so enveloped in this eye of manifesting. But in this series, we are talking about non-duality and how it intersects with native wisdom. In native wisdom, the earth is so alive and full of gifts. And human beings are part of the earth, and we are so intertwined that the idea of manifesting could never, ever exist. Everything that we need already exists. You know, imagine a native existence. Anybody could just like stand up and go off and get something to eat. You don't have to earn money and go to the grocery store. And you never did it by yourself either. There was no such a thing as an individual, as by yourself doing something. You know, groups of people would move here, groups of people would move there, and everybody was intricately involved in feeding each other, making the clothes and the housing and everything that needed to happen. It was like human beings intertwined with each other exactly the same way that the earth intertwines with trees and air and sunlight coming in and wind blowing and water flowing and water evaporating and coming down and raining. Everything was so intertwined that the idea that an individual person would need to manifest something simply could not exist. That idea couldn't happen. So, God, I almost wanted to use the word true enlightenment. I don't even know what to call it, but becoming a completely integrated human being where the divisive mind is completely gone and you know who you are. You don't need to manifest because you're just literally sitting in such an abundant world. And you understand that the society that we live in is difficult. There's human beings, there's this society. It's hard. I have to earn money in order to buy something. I live in a situation, you probably do too, where I can't just walk out my house and just start eating things. I mean, first of all, the houses are in the way. where the plant everything used to grow, or the little animals to run around, that you would eat, is now full of houses. So you can't do it. Our society is everywhere. We're so completely intertwined inside of it that we have to live within these rules. And so an enlightened person would know, if you want to manifest something in this world that we live in, get a job, earn some money, cooperate with people, do the things that are necessary to live in this world, have relationships, have families, be involved in things. You don't just sit and try to dream up life. Life is about being involved. So this idea of manifesting things, this is just crazy. And this is what I have to call a conqueror's idea. This is only the kind of an idea that a person who feels like they're divided and living in a divided world would come up with. And the email from Osho International. And also, I love Osho. He was my teacher. He was fabulously eloquent speaker. I mean, I sit down and I read the things he said, and I'm like, holy cow, if I could even get a small spattering of his ability to speak, I mean, that would just be so wonderful. But he only had the tools that he had to use to describe his experience. Same thing as Eckhart Tolle, same thing as me. Sidebar, I'm striving to come up with some different tools, thinking that maybe having some different tools will make a real difference for people. But Osho International, it was the alchemy of self-transformation. Just the very idea of that self, that the self has to be transformed. Self, it's the idea of this individual, separate thing. It's a noun, if you want to go back to what we were talking about last week about languages. Self is a noun, it's a thing. Here's this thing, and I must transform it. Of course, irony in Osho's way of describing things, what you're transforming the self into is nothing. So why not just why not just start at nothing? Why first of all invent this idea of this separate self and then try to, transform it into nothing? Let's just admit that these ideas of separation are not useful and come to us from this several thousand-year-old history of individualism and separatism. It so deeply entwined with our vision of who we are. And so again, I'm going to kind of put in, why do I talk about non-duality and native spirituality? It's because native spirituality, this is the goal. This is where we want to get to, where we're naturally in that spot. So that when we encounter a native teacher or when we read something, we know, oh yes, I can help bring this more into the reality of the world, so we can start living our lives with this deeply interconnected self as part of our being. So native spirituality is where we're trying to get to and where we started from. This is our natural self. But we need a tool to bring us from this divided fantasy, from this imagination that we're divided, from this, we've been hypnotized into believing all the stories that tell us we're divided. So we've been hypnotized by individualism. How do you bring yourself out of that and into this circle of life that is the natural place that we live? Non-duality is the tool that gets you there. And non-duality is a very, very simple tool. It's just simply, no matter what comes up, stopping and going, how is that creating division? And mostly, what you're trying to find is, who am I? Because who you are is completely undivided, completely so blended into all of existence and nothingness that there's no edges to it. And it's who you are. It's me. It's who's driving this vehicle, who you are. So right now, who you are is hypnotized into believing the chattering that's going on in your mind. So non-duality is this very simple tool. Don't make it any more complicated than it is. It's simply a tool that says, you are not your thoughts. And so you can't actually think about it, because if you think about, I want to think about the fact that I am not my thoughts, that's a thought, right? So it's like this loop. And so Osho called it the razor's edge. It's a little knife that you use to just cut through that illusion. I'm trying to figure it out. Wait, but you're not your thoughts. You can't figure it out. So what is that? Where there's no words to describe it, that's you. No words needed. So, native spirituality is the goal, non-duality is the tool to get there. Because the one thing that native spirituality does not have is a tool or a strategy or a technique to get from being divided back to being connected. What native traditions do have is tools on, once you're connected, how to stay connected. And this is the ceremonies and the stories and, all of the ways that native people would integrate and work with each other. So, manifesting doesn't exist when you're in a world, a universe that is just so full of giving to us, transforming the self. There's nothing to transform. So both of these things, look at how the spiritual teachings that were given come from our conquering consciousness as much as anything. So that's why they aren't helping us. This is why it's not working. This is why people search for, they say, lifetimes. One life is too much. You should be able to get there pretty darn quick once you realize that this is what I want to do. I want to be an integrated human being. You should be able to go from making that decision to being there fairly quickly, simply and easily, because you are just going into normal. And then, of course, there's, you got to continuously scrub the stories, search and search and search. So this is why I have a whole bunch of books on my website. Be sure to go there, start reading this real stuff. Don't sit around and listen to dumb gurus talking about stuff. Go read real stuff, real history, real stories. Read native wisdom. Rumi, there is a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there.